This is very dangerous. Do not try this at home. This is just meant to show you what possibly could happen if you had a barrel obstruction.
Fire the hole.
There's a lot of design aspects that go into building a firearm and testing. There's material considerations, there's design considerations, and you want to make sure that the gun obviously works well with standard ammunition, but there's also safety margins that have to be built into the gun and the barrel design. And then you also want to know how far can you push these barrels and these gun systems to understand when they go to failure, to try to design a system that doesn't hurt the shooter, it just hurts the gun. So today we have the Encore barrel, and Carl's going to kind of walk through what we test for, what we look for to make sure that TC is delivering the best in quality, performance, and safety.
Right. This barrel is one of our brand new barrels, the 300 Win Mag. And as Greg was saying, we're testing a lot of things here. So what we'll do is, on a brand new barrel like this, we'll take a lot of dimensions, the bolt slot, the distance over here, different areas of the barrel to see how they respond under high loads. So once that's all done, I mean, one of the big factors that we also got to consider is when the company moved back to Rochester, we didn't get a lot of the old equipment. So now we're processing a new equipment, new processes, and in a lot of places, better processes. But we also got to do our due diligence and test. So here today, we're going to be testing with a standard load. And whenever you do these first tests, you want to make sure you do it in a safe situation. So we use this test tire that we have out here. Yeah. So we'll test it with a standard load, then we shoot proof loads. We'll do this test several different ways. Sometimes we'll shoot multiple proof loads in there, and then we'll take the measurements over and over to make sure nothing's moving in the parts. And then, as Greg was saying,
so these are proof loads, right? So these cannot be purchased from the public, right? So the manufacturer. So this is Hornady. So they make the proof load. So they're indicated with the red. Here's the standard load, and these are loaded 20% higher than SAMI recommended pressures.
Right.
So Carl's taken all your measurements beforehand. So then after we go through these pressure testings, we want to understand, does anything move? Does anything change? Because if we need to make a materials change, a design change, a manufacturing change, we can build that all within this safety margin to make sure the shooter obviously is safe and the guns function beyond what SAMI recommends for pressures.
Correct. And as we were talking about taking them to failure after, we'll actually simulate what happens when you leave a laser probe or some other bore obstruction in the muzzle. You're saying we want to make sure the material doesn't fragment. You want to make sure the material just peels back, and you want to keep it away from the shooter. So we want to make sure the action can hold during these extreme pressures, and make sure the barrel responds the way it should.
So realistically, what we're going to try to replicate is with this pin. Like I said, it could be a laser probe that's in here, it could be a cleaning rod that's in there, or it could be a squib load where a bullet didn't make it outside the barrel and somebody didn't realize that, right? So therefore they load another round, or something very simple. We've all had this happen where you trip and you fall, your gun goes in the mud, it goes in the snow, and you think it's clean, but realistically that pressure builds up at the end of the barrel and that bullet collides there, and we just want to make sure that we try to keep the shooter as safe as possible. This system has been out for a lot of years, so we don't expect anything crazy, but as Carl said, we have to do our due diligence. So let's go start with firing a standard load in the test fixture over here. But we're going to remind everybody, okay? Do not do this at home. We know that you can't buy these proof loads. We don't want you making your own little test rounds. This is only to show you what we do to make the best product possible. And this is only for representation purposes. And but we do want to also show you what could happen in the event that you did have a barrel obstruction. Doesn't go anywhere. All right, barrel in. Okay. Standard load is in. This through here to there. All right. Where you need it?
Yep. We'll pull the hammer back.
Okay, if you want to go back on the other end of the string, when you're ready, I'll cock the hammer and walk back. Now that that is all set, Carl is safely behind the barricade. So this is the standard load. We don't expect to have any issues, just a little bit of recoil, no damage to anything, but you always have to start with your baseline. So here we go, first shot. Hammer is cocked. We'll go still walk behind the barricade even though we know it's okay.
You guys ready?
Yep.
Fire in the hole.
Don't expect any excitement here.
No.
Standard load.
Boring.
But if we don't do it, follow the process. I mean, the gun didn't even move out of the fixture. Pretty simple. Obviously opens easily. Yeah. No primer piercing. Everything looks great. Functioned perfectly. All right. I think we can put a proof load in now.
Bring one down. One of the things we look for on a shot like that is just to make sure the brass doesn't have any feed lines from the chamber. And as you can see on this one here, it's very smooth, very nice finish on it. So that's just another area that we look at when we're testing like this.
All right. So here's our next shot. So this is with the proof load. Now remember, the proof load is not available for sale. It's only for manufacturers to purchase from the ammo companies, and it's loaded to 20% over a maximum chamber pressure specified by SAMI. So we don't expect to have any real issues here. We could have some primer piercing, things could lock up a little tighter, but we should have zero failures. So let's get behind the barricade, see what happens.
Fire in the hole.
That was significantly louder.
Yeah, a lot louder. You might need your rod to knock the shell out sometimes too.
I don't see any visual issues, no crack to the stock, no damage to the frame. Let's see how it opens here. Yep. No damage to the stock, no issues. Okay, it's a little stiffer. There we go. Yep, pop. So this is so obviously the extreme pressure swelled the casing inside the chamber. The extractor still lifted it out. There you go. Functioned flawlessly, even with 20% over max chamber pressures. I don't see any issues, Carl. See what you can see.
Yeah, there's nothing. One of the areas I look at because of the new processes is like the weld, make sure there's no signs of anything there. We'll end up taking this back even after we do the next test and checking the lug area and all that. But there's no damage at all in this.
Yeah. There's the casing. Do you see
the casing? Yeah, the casing, if you look at the case, you can see there's a lot of excess pressure. See how the firing pin where it hit actually crated back? Yeah. And that's a good sign that you're shooting over pressurized loads. So if you see something like that, you really shouldn't fire those types of rounds.
Okay. That is a standard load. Okay, that's not a proof load. And again, you do not try this at home. This is meant to just simulate a barrel obstruction. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in the muzzle right there. So again, if you had a laser bore sighter, you dropped your gun in the mud or the snow, squib load, something that would block the end of this barrel. This is a standard round, it's not the proof round. So we're gonna see how the barrel reacts to a barrel obstruction. This is very dangerous. Do not try this at home. This is just meant to show you what possibly could happen if you had a barrel obstruction.
Fire in the hole. Helmet FUD.
Oh my God. You know, it didn't really sound that loud, but it goes to show you just something clogging the barrel, what that can do. That's incredible. That peeled it back like a banana. The gun's still in the cradle. Wow. Check this out. Look at this. Completely peeled it back. Take this out. That would scare you to death if that happened. No break in the stock. Look at that. Opens absolutely perfectly. So all the damage occurred at the end of the barrel. So if you were a shooter shooting this, you know, you probably would not be hurt, especially if you had shooting glasses on. There could be some pieces that certainly separated. Look at that. I mean, you can totally see it right there. That slug was in there, because here it collided with the slug right there, and all that pressure, and then just blew it out.
One of the things that you look for too is the pieces didn't break off. If you folded this all back together, all the pieces would come back together, so you didn't have fragmentation.
Right.
So that's one of the areas we always look. You can see where the bulge started in the barrel, but it peeled like it should, and it didn't fragment, which is great.
So when the bullet came and hit the barrel obstruction, it basically created back pressure.
Exactly, exactly.
So that pressure, you know, it would have bulged here, and then when it released, it just peeled it like a banana.
Apart. And like you said, I mean, the action itself is still fine. We did break a bolt inside.
Yeah.
Pretty typical when you go into that kind of violence.
Yeah.
But that's it.
But the gun didn't open up.
But the gun didn't open up, and it still ejected the shell.
Correct.
You know, and we'll take this back and measure it, but I don't expect to find anything that moved at all.
So if you ever wondered what a barrel obstruction would do to your gun, this is it. Dangerous, dangerous situation. Not catastrophic as far as hurting the shooter, but you definitely want to be very mindful to having anything inside the barrel. But this is the type of testing that we do at TC to make sure that we build the ultimate in quality, performance, and obviously safety to the shooter.